Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Daniel, and I am with Pluralsight, and it's my pleasure to kind of help host today, take care of some housekeeping items, and just make sure everything goes smoothly. Um, to get things started, I did want to take care of a few specific things that come up a lot when we're doing webinars. Number one, everyone asks, are we recording today's presentation? And we are recording. We are also streaming this on Pluralsight social media channels, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. So if you're joining us on one of those channels, then it kind of automatically records and you can go and rewatch any of this after the fact. Just immediately. If you're joining us via Zoom, then we will send you a link to this recorded presentation sometime in the next day or two. We try to get those out pretty quick. So just hang tight for a day or two and we'll get you an email with a link to the recording. Another thing to keep in mind, especially if you're joining us via Zoom, is sometimes if you run into issues with audio or video cutting out, leaving the presentation and jumping back in usually tends to resolve most of those issues. So if you continue to have any weird audiovisual problems, then feel free to send us a Q&A message and I'll look into those problems. But otherwise, I think everything else is set. I'm really excited today to present David Davis. He's going to be talking all about achieving your VMware certification, hopefully on the first try, right, David?
That's right. Yeah. Thanks, Daniel.
Yep.
Thanks for having me. Well, hello and welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on the webinar here today. Happy Friday to everyone. I'm here to talk, as Daniel said, about tips and tricks for achieving VMware certification. My name is David Davis. I'm a Pluralsight author. Been a Pluralsight author for many years now. I've been creating video training since I think it was around 2004, if memory serves. And so my goal here is to help share some of my experience around VMware certification. I mean, we want this to be educational. We encourage your questions, and we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the event. So, get those questions in early. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. We'll do our best to route those questions back to me for the Q&A. So again, thanks everyone. And let's go ahead and kick it off. With first off, the goal of today's webinar is simply because I know VMware certification can be confusing. It can be overwhelming. It's been confusing to me. I have to confess that. Originally, there was just the VMware Certified Professional, just one certification. That was it. You took it, you're VMware certified. But today, it's a whole much more, plate of spaghetti, if you will. And so the goal of this is first to have some fun here, help you learn about VMware, what they're doing around certification, but also to help you come away with a plan of attack so that you can achieve, as Daniel said, your certification on the first attempt. You'll be well prepared. You'll be confident. The agenda here, first I'll just tell you who I am, a little bit of background on me, my experience with VMware certification and VMware products. Answer the question, why? Why are we talking about VMware certification? There's so many different, products today in the world of technology, and you can choose to get certified on any of them. So why should you spend your valuable time and invest it in VMware certification specifically? And then I'll talk about the VMware certification landscape, exactly what makes it up. There's a number of different tracks. There's a number of different certification options. Then from there, once you've seen kind of the whole menu, I'll help to try to guide you to a specific certification to choose from. And then as advertised, the tips and tricks for success to make sure you are well prepared and confident. And then in the end, I've got some kind of frequently asked questions I'll go through. And then of course, we'll do a Q&A. So that's the agenda. There's a little bit of fine print here. When we talk about VMware certification, I want to make sure that I don't mislead you in any way. I don't work for VMware. I don't represent VMware's education and certification organization. What I share today is simply just based on my experience as an independent VMware trainer. And no, I'm not going to tell you what's on the test. Sorry. I don't want to spoil anything there. And then your mileage may vary. Of course, I have to throw that in. So, just quickly, who am I? I'm not here to boast about my VMware knowledge, but just to give you some background about where I came from and how I got into this. Hopefully it's valuable to you as well. I started off as just a system admin. I was running backup tapes in the data center. I got promoted to a system administrator, later an IT manager. I've always loved VMware, or I shouldn't say VMware. I've always loved learning, just learning new technologies, learning new things. I never want to stop learning. I'm a 13-time VMware vExpert, a Cisco CCIE emeritus, a VMware certified professional and a VMware certified advanced professional, and also an AWS certified cloud practitioner. I've authored over 85 Pluralsight courses, mostly on virtualization and VMware vSphere. With recently the new vSphere 7 learning path, we've been refreshing the entire content lineup for the most part. My single most popular course, coincidentally, isn't about virtualization specifically, but it is cloud computing fundamentals. And I've done some webinars here at Pluralsight on that topic as well. And then I also work at Actual Tech Media, running events and webinars just like this on a daily basis. So what's my VMware origin story? Kind of like we talk about the superheroes, which I am not one, but my VMware origin story is, like I said, I was a system admin. I was an IT manager. I had an admin, Jason. I want to call out a system admin, Jason, out there back in 2004-ish, came to my office and said, hey, we've got server sprawl in the data center. We've got so many physical servers. We don't know what to do. We're running out of power, cooling. We're paying a ton in electricity. They're a pain to manage. There's this new technology called VMware that can help us to virtualize those physical servers, make everything more efficient, save money. I said, wow, that sounds amazing. Let's do that. So that's exactly what we did. We went from like 50 physical servers down to 16. And during that time, we went from VMware Server to VMware ESX Server at the time. And I had what I call my vMotion moment. Every VMware admin out there has had at some point their vMotion moment, I think, when they first see VMware vMotion in action. And with a drag and a drop, you can move a running server, applications, data, everything from one host to another with zero downtime. So the end users don't know the difference. You just move that running server from one physical host to another physical host. Nobody knew the difference. And it's like, boom, your mind is blown, right? I love this stuff. And since then, of course, I've been creating video training around VMware technologies, and I did that full time for many years. And in fact, at VMworld 2008, my first VMworld, I was there trying to give away my video training on DVD, valued at $399 at that point, trying to act like a carnival barker and like, hey, step right up, get your VMware training. Since then, thankfully, things have changed a lot, and we have Pluralsight, we have video training galore in the Pluralsight library. And we'll be talking about how those courses fit in with achieving your VMware certification here on the webinar. So lately I've been working on, like I said, refreshing the VMware vSphere 7 learning path and, covering really every topic on the VMware Certified Professional exam blueprint. And we'll be talking about exam blueprints as well. So these are some of the latest courses on availability, virtual machines, storage, and really just kind of going down every one of these courses that have been published in the last 6-7 months across the VMware Certified Professional exam blueprint. So we recently published all these. Last week, we published vSphere availability. And in the next few months, the plan is to cover all of these courses, publish all of these in the Pluralsight Learning Library, vSphere resources, troubleshooting, monitoring, security, all of those topics. And you might be asking, okay, that's great, David, but how does all this fit into VMware certification? And so before we answer that, just one more question I want to cover, and that is, why VMware certification at all? Why should I be so interested in this? And well, some VMware experts said the VMware certification is a smart move both now and in the future. Actually, that was me. I said that. But why? Well, I believe that VMware certified IT professionals are really valuable in the job market, both now and in the future. And that's because VMware technology is just as relevant today as it's been, all along, and even more so in the future as we, virtualize 100% of our workloads. Not all of those workloads are moving into cloud native applications and into the public cloud. Of course, VMware is also in the public cloud. You can run VMware in AWS, in GCP, in Google, in Microsoft Azure. So VMware runs in the cloud, and VMware IT professionals are still, just as valuable as they've always been. And something to me that's nice about VMware technology is it's a known skill. And what I mean by that is if you compare it to, for example, cloud, if I was an IT recruiter or an IT manager and I needed someone who knew about cloud, it's quite ambiguous, right? It's a little bit nebulous. Like, well, what do you mean by that? Exactly which technology and which skill set? And with cloud comes a whole lot of automation and scripting and all these things. And those are valuable. And I'm not here to bash them in any way, but one of the benefits I see with VMware is it's a very defined skill set. So if you're an IT recruiter looking for someone who's a VMware professional, you look for a VCP. If you find someone who's a VCP and they have some experience, it's very likely that they're qualified. And if you compare that to cloud skill sets, it's kind of hard to compare. So that's just one of the many things I like about VMware and VMware certifications. But as we talked about with VMware, the majority of the data centers in the world still run VMware technologies, and it's not going away. It runs your company's critical applications like they should be run, highly available and with optimum performance. And VMware continues to innovate with vSphere with Kubernetes, where it can run those cloud native workloads as we continue to rewrite or recreate more legacy applications into cloud native designs. Those workloads still run on VMware vSphere. Like I said, it's in the public cloud. And hey, VMware does a great job when it comes to education, when it comes to resources and certifications. They have great documentation. They lay it out very well. It's very clear cut when it comes to exactly what you need to do to achieve your VMware certification. So with that, let's talk about exactly the VMware certification landscape and the certification track. It really starts off with what VMware calls the DCV, or the Data Center Virtualization track. And I'll give you a sneak peek here. There are 6 different tracks in the VMware certification lineup. And these are not to be confused with specific VMware certifications. You can think of these more as like topical areas. So just like going to a conference, you might have different tracks on storage and networking and security and professional development skills. So these are VMware's certification topics or tracks. And the data center virtualization, or DCV, is really kind of the granddaddy of them all. If someone thinks about the VMware VCP, they're most likely thinking about the data center virtualization track, because that's where it all started. So if I say, hey, I need a VMware admin, are they a VCP? They're talking about the DCV, the VMware Certified Professional Data Center Virtualization track. And this is really where you learn how to install vSphere, how to install VMware vCenter, how to configure vSphere availability, distributed resource scheduler, how to perform a vMotion and storage vMotion, VMware fault tolerance, monitoring and administration of virtual machines. It's all in the DCV. From there, VMware has what they call the network virtualization, or the NV track. And this is all about VMware's network virtualization solution, NSXT, installing network virtualization, configuring, troubleshooting, and design. And then from there, they have the cloud management and automation track that they call the CMA. This is about vRealize operations, vRealize automation, and VMware's cloud automation. So this is really performance tuning, monitoring, troubleshooting vSphere implementations across on-premises and in the cloud. Also automating things, common tasks in the infrastructure, automating those so that they can be performed more efficiently and more quickly. Sorry. Then you have the digital workspace track, and this has been recently renamed. This is really desktop virtualization, VMware Horizon, VDI, VMware Workspace ONE, And while I don't talk about the training courses for that specifically, I think later in this session here, I should point out that Greg Shields at Pluralsight has done a great job creating courses for all of the VMware Horizon products, including Workspace ONE. So if you're interested in digital workspace, there's a lot of training out there available for you in the Pluralsight library. And then we have the security track, better known as SEC or security. This covers VMware's Carbon Black, some NSXT, and some Workspace ONE. And then finally, application modernization, which is the newest of these 6 tracks. And it really covers all the VMware Tanzu products, which is a family of products, Tanzu Kubernetes, Tanzu Mission Control, and Spring Development. So if you're taking kind of the legacy applications, you're modernizing those into cloud native architectures, the application modernization track might be for you. Honestly, it's not an area that I have delved much into. And like I said, it's relatively new as well. So when it comes to VMware's certification tiers, like the specific certifications that you can get, it starts off with the VMware Certified Technical Associate, also known as the VCTA. And the VCTA is, a great certification. It's very new. It replaced the VMware Certified Associate, which I took in the past. And the VCTA, the idea behind it is anybody can get it, anybody in the world. You study your VMware, technologies and concepts, go through the exam blueprint, take the test online. It's 60 to 90 minutes, a multiple choice, and pay your relatively, very affordable test exam fee, and you can have a VMware certification. So similar in concept to like Microsoft's MCP, where you take one test, you're Microsoft certified, or similar to the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam, where you take one online test and you're certified. That's the idea with the VCTA. So a great certification for anybody who wants to get started with VMware. From there, you go to the VCP, which is really the best known and most popular VMware certification out there. Again, when people think of a VMware certified, individual of some kind, they think of the VCP. That's what they're talking about in most cases. With the VMware certified professional, the catch is, as it has been all along since it was created, you have to take a VMware education class. And that class has to be taken either in person, which I doubt they're doing very much lately, or online. You can take it virtually, through your web browser. It's roughly a 5-day class. And I don't know the exact cost off the top of my head, but I'm going to tell you it's more than $1,000. And because of that, it's a relatively high hurdle, or a barrier to entry, if you will, to achieving the VCP. And of course, a lot of people, don't like the idea of being required to take a class to get a certification. But the flip side of it is there's many fewer VMware certified professionals in the world today, I'm sure, than there would be if you didn't have to take the class. And on the other benefit to that is that employers and recruiters also know that, hey, if somebody's a VCP, they have some level of hands-on education that they have done. They didn't just read a book and take a test. They have worked with vSphere in a hands-on environment. And so to me, that makes the VCP much more valuable, for example, than other paper certifications, if you will. And what's important to point out here is that you don't have to start with the VCTA. That's not a requirement. You can start directly with the VMware Certified Professional, of course, if you're willing to meet that barrier to entry. And then from there, you have, on top of that, the VMware Certified Advanced Professional. I took these certification exams and really enjoyed them. The catch is they're multiple hours. I'm talking like 3.5 hours, I believe that the test is. And it's all hands-on, 100% hands-on. There's no multiple choice questions. You're sitting at a console, accessing a real vSphere infrastructure, and you're configuring it. You're troubleshooting it. You're doing whatever the challenge is that you're given. You're doing that either through the graphical interface or command line to solve these real-world problems. So it's a challenging exam, and I wouldn't, consider even looking at it until you've achieved your VMware Certified Professional. And then at the highest level, VMware has the VMware Certified Design Expert, or the VCDX. And this is a lengthy in-person panel exam, typically done in person. You fly to California or somewhere like that, and you have submitted a design that you've created, and then your panel asks you questions about that design. So it's a real world, half day, full day, whatever it is, practical in-person exam. And it's really for those who are designing vSphere infrastructures. And for that reason, to me, it's very different than the other 3 exams or certifications below it, in the 4-layer cake here. I should mention that not all of these VMware certifications are available across all the different tracks. For example, with security, there is no VMware Certified Advanced Professional in security. And the same thing goes for application modernization. On the other hand, the VMware Data Center Virtualization track has certification options or tiers available at all the different levels here. So now let me go ahead and open my web browser, if you will, and show you from VMware's official website what this looks like, how they view these VMware certifications. And it's interesting to point out here how they target these certifications for specific job roles. So if you start off with the VCTA, and we're talking about the data center virtualization track here, this is for operators. This is for people who are probably not installing vSphere. They are administering a vSphere infrastructure that's already up and running. They're walking in, they're called day 2 operators, if you will. So they're just keeping things running, they're administering virtual machines, but they understand how it all works. From there, we have the VMware Certified Professional in the data center virtualization track. And like I said, this is more for those who are installing, configuring, and they fully understand the advanced features of vSphere. After that, of course, we have the VMware Certified Advanced Professional. And I should mention it's available in 2 different flavors, even in the DCV track. So you can do a design VCAP or you can do a deploy VCAP. And again, this is a 3 to 4 hour practical exam where you're sitting there configuring things as quickly as possible. And then finally, you have the Panel Defense VMware Certified Design Expert for those who are advanced architects or consultants. And so that's really how the certification, tracks break down at VMware. So with that in mind, I guess the next logical question is, where do I start? If I'm new to VMware certification, how should I get started? I mean, you have all these different certifications in the 4-layer cake. I would recommend just ignoring those. Start with a VMware Certified Technical Associate, assuming you're relatively new to VMware, And so why start with a VCTA? Well, it's entry level. Like I said, it's the easiest way to try a VMware certification. If you're new to VMware, you're just getting started learning, you want to have, some VMware certification on your resume, hey, this is easy. Low barrier to entry. You take it from home. It's $125 at the time of this webinar, in US dollars, 51 questions. You get the minimum, number to pass, and boom, you got a VMware Certified Technical Associate badge. You can put it on your resume. You can put it on your blog. You can put it in your Twitter credentials, on LinkedIn. There you go. So that's where I would recommend starting if you're new to, VMware certifications. On the other hand, for those out there who have some VMware experience already, maybe you're a network admin or a storage admin, you have vSphere at your company, and you want to, get a VMware certification to prove your knowledge, to have that on your resume. Maybe you're hoping to get a promotion or a new job at a larger company with a better pay rate. Hey, start with the VCP. And of course, the barrier to entry, as we talked about, you have to be willing to overcome that VMware education course. And you can take it online. It's virtual. Hopefully your employer might help you to, cover that cost. But I've known many VMware admins who paid for the course, themselves. because to them, having the VMware Certified Professional was a badge of honor, and it was a great advancement for their career. It's much more valuable than the VMware Certified Technical Associate. And in my opinion, it's worth the investment and time and money if you're willing to, if you're intending on moving along this path of VMware certification. So let me take a quick drink. And now let's talk about the tips and tricks for success, as advertised, in the webinar title. So first tip for success, in my opinion, here is to create a training plan. I mean, you should never jump into anything without a plan. If it's going to be a serious thing that you really want to achieve, think of it as running a 5K race or a marathon. It's not something you're going to jump out of bed and just go run and do one morning. You're going to have a plan. Okay, how am I going to accomplish this? What's the date that I want to do this? And then work backward from there. Just like any good project planner, you're going to work backward from there. You're going to come up with some milestones. For example, you could take the VMware Certified Professional exam blueprint, and it breaks down into, let's say, 7 or 8 different objectives. And you could say, okay, over the next 8 weeks, I'm going to, study each one of these different objectives. I'm going to create a sample test for myself at the end of each week and, make sure that I know these things. Or I'm going to watch this training course and I'm going to try to recreate each of these modules in my own lab environment or online. So have a plan for success. If you don't have a plan, it's unlikely you're going to achieve your certification on the first try. Schedule time on your calendar. They always say this, productivity gurus, if you want to accomplish something, whether it's, reading a book every day or learning something new, you have to block out time on your calendar. You're not going to learn you're not going to learn what you need to know to achieve your VCP, certification simply by listening to a video while you're driving into the office in your car, let's say. You don't want to watch it, but just listening. You're not going to learn what you need to know simply by listening. You need to get some hands-on experience, and I'll talk about that as well. But you need to schedule time to do that. It's not going to happen just, in 10 minutes before you go to bed or, whatever each night. You need some dedicated time blocked off on your calendar. And then, like I said, gain hands-on experience. I think that's the single most valuable thing I can say when it comes to any VMware certification is invest some time. In the military, the pilots, they call it stick time, right? You have to have stick time in the cockpit flying the plane in order to be a good pilot. Well, in the world of technology, we call it screen time, right? You have to have some screen time with VMware in order to achieve your certification on the first attempt. And to me, this also helps you not only achieve your VMware certification, but it also helps you to be a more valuable employee, right? I mean, I was an IT manager. I don't want to hire somebody who just read a book and passed a test. I want to hire somebody who's had some real time, even if it isn't a lab environment, somebody who's had some real time working with this technology. So you want to have that real experience to back it up. And I know a lot of people will say, but my company doesn't have VMware, or I don't have a job where I have access to a VMware environment. No problem. I'm going to talk about how to overcome that. And it's completely free as well. And to me, this is also an example of what makes a VCP so valuable. It's having this hands-on experience. So how do you gain that hands-on experience if you don't have VMware at your company? And of course, I should put out the caveat, never do any sort of training or testing or education in a production environment if your company does have VMware vSphere. That's a good way to quickly make a mistake, bring down something, and lose your job. So the first way to get some hands-on experience is through a local virtual lab. And you can do this with VMware Workstation if you're on a PC on Windows, or you can do it with VMware Fusion if you're on a Mac with an Apple device. And it's easy to do. In fact, I've got a couple courses over in the Pluralsight library specifically on how to create a virtual lab environment with VMware Workstation or with VMware Fusion. And the cool thing about this is, there's free trials of each of these different pieces of software. And then there's free trials of VMware vSphere that you would install into your virtual lab. So, as long as you have the resources on your local desktop or laptop to run VMware Workstation or VMware Fusion, and then run some virtual machines inside, it's relatively easy to do to create your own virtual lab environment. And that's a great way to get some hands-on experience. The other option is to create a local physical lab of some kind. And to me, that's real servers running VMware vSphere. You could have just a single host. You could install vSphere on that, and you could run multiple virtual machines inside. You could run virtual ESXi servers. So they call that nested ESXi, to really create a production environment on a single machine, or simulate a production environment on a single machine, having multiple physical servers like you would have in a real data center, but do it on a single host. Of course, the ideal way to do that would be to have multiple physical hosts, just like you would in the real data center, but that's going to cost money to buy physical servers. And considerations, or my tips here, when it comes to buying physical servers to create a lab environment, consider the CPU in the lab. How many CPUs will you need to run these workloads, and what CPU are you going to have in your servers? You want to make sure that they're going to be compatible with vSphere. Make sure you have enough RAM and storage. Those are really the primary constraints in a vSphere lab environment. VMware vSphere 7 especially has an ever increasing amount of storage and memory, when it comes to what's required. Consider the heat, power, space, and noise that this lab will create. I mean, I've known people on Twitter who have a basement with racks of servers just to build an amazing vSphere lab. But for most of us, that's probably not very practical. One is, just to spend the money to do that. But two is to have the space, the electric bill that goes along with it, and the heating or the cooling, required to keep that lab up and running, and the noise. The cool thing is today there are many small form factor options, including Intel NUCs and Supermicro servers. If you go out to virtually Ghetto, William Lamb's website, he works at VMware, and his website is an amazing resource when it comes to building lab environments. And so if you haven't seen that, check it out. That's actually where I got the recommendation for my lab environment, which is on the VMware hardware compatibility list. That's another tip. You want to make sure that it's on the VMware compatibility list to make sure you don't have any issues. And the cool thing is, when it comes to the vSphere software, yes, you can use the free evaluations, but they'll time out after a while. And with the VMware user group, they have what they call VMUG Advantage. And if you subscribe to that, it's not super expensive. You can gain access to lab licenses of VMware vSphere to run in your lab environment. And so this is my lab, actually. I just recently installed it. It's in a linen closet, so it doesn't take up much space at all. I've got 4 servers right there, 4 Supermicro servers, a gig Ethernet switch, and a SAN NAS storage array. And you can see the temperature there is 75 degrees. It's not too loud. In fact, they even have new small form factor servers that have that are fanless. So there's no noise whatsoever from the fans. And those are just 3 of the Supermicro nodes. They almost fit in the size of your hand. They're about the size of an iPad, but much thicker. And that's inside of it. They've got 64 gigs of memory. They have a terabyte of storage and 512 gigs of flash. So you can run VMware vSAN in these tiny nodes, and it makes for a great physical lab. That's kind of the ultimate option, in my opinion. That's the best option available. There are also cloud-based labs. If you look out there for virtual vSphere labs, there are a couple of companies that allow you to pay a reasonable subscription to actually access a cloud-based lab. There's also, of course, VMware Cloud on AWS, although that can get relatively costly very quickly. But the free option that I promised here to gain hands-on experience with vSphere just from your web browser, like you're doing right now on your computer, is to access VMware's free hands-on lab environment. So this is what it looks like right here. I'm running a vSphere 7 Lightning Lab here, which takes roughly 30 minutes to get started. You're accessing real servers running VMware vSphere in a completely free environment, all in your web browser. And they have lab guides that go along with the different exercises. You can access that at hol.vmware.com. Yes, it's free. I just counted before this event, and there are 233 different labs out there. And so to me, that's the ultimate way to gain access to a vSphere environment without ever having to spend a dime. And I talk about all these different lab options, how to build your environment and consider these different options in my vSphere 7 introduction course, by the way, in the Pluralsight library. I also talk about my lab, how I created it, what I used, and the software I installed, and the networking configuration as well. A second tip here is to know the exam blueprint. VMware does a great job of publishing exactly the objectives and bullet points for each of those objectives that's going to be covered in the exam. It's no secret what's going to be on the exam. If you go out to VMware's website, for example, here's the VMware Certified Technical Associate. By the way, all their certifications are refreshed for 2021. So make sure that whatever you're looking at, it's new. If you have an old book that covers VMware certification, everything's changed this year. So check out the official VMware education homepage. And if you go there, you'll see the exact exam that you'll need to take. In this case, for the VCTA, it's the Associate VMware Data Center Virtualization exam. You can see 135 minutes, 51 questions, $125 US. You click on that, and that brings you to this page where you can download the exam guide. And so this exam guide to me is really kind of the Bible of exactly what you need to know step by step to prepare for the exam. It breaks it down. For the VCTA, there are 7 different sections, and each one of those sections, for the most part, has objectives. And so you can see section 1 covers architecture and technologies, and it tells you, be able to identify examples of type 1 versus type 2 hypervisors, be able to list out the components that make up the vSphere infrastructure, the business challenges that vSphere addresses. I talked about those. Hey, save on power, cooling, electricity, more efficient administration. What is vMotion? How does it work? I talked about my aha vMotion moment, but what is vMotion really, and how does it work its magic? Well, you'll be able to answer those types of questions, once you've prepared for the exam using the exam guide. I still call them exam blueprints, but they're all out there for every single exam, on the VMware website. And then finally, work your plan. Set a reminder every day, block it out on your calendar. You're not going to achieve what you want to achieve without going through your plan step by step. And so with that, I'm just going to now go into what I consider to be some of the more frequently asked questions around VMware certification. I get emails, I get messages on Twitter. Some of these are kind of silly. I'm sure, hopefully, kind of fun. But I'm just going to go through these, and then I'll start taking your questions. So first off is, who's the Wired Brain Coffee Company? I still get jokes about this, on Twitter. People who are like, hey, I remember the Wired Brain Coffee Company from your very first course. And I use the Wired Brain Coffee Company still to this day in every one of the vSphere courses that I create, or I'm creating right now in the vSphere product or learning path in the Pluralsight library. And so the Wired Brain Coffee Company is just a fictitious company that I came up with to use as an example in my training courses. They are supposedly a chain of coffee houses, mostly on the East Coast of the US. They're implementing VMware vSphere in their data center to run their critical applications. They've got a number of remote locations, and vSphere is going to make their life easier. And so in my training courses, I walk through how to help out the Wired Brain Coffee Company as if you were a consultant, stepping them through the installation and configuration and administration of vSphere. Another, common question, and I just want to make sure I point out, is the official location for VMware certification info is right there. The VMware, education services certification homepage. Things change a lot with VMware vSphere. So if you're watching this webinar later, make sure you go out to VMware's website and get the latest details on any exam or certification that you choose to pursue, because I'll tell you, they change things pretty much every year now. Every year they release all new exams, all new blueprints. So make sure that you stay up to date with those. What's the easiest VMware certification to achieve? I must say the VMware Certified Technical Associate. If you're new to VMware, you want to get started, you want to have a VMware credential on your resume or your LinkedIn page, you want to be able to give it to your boss as justification for a raise, start off with the VMware Certified Technical Associate. On the other hand, like I said, if you have VMware, at your company, you have a little bit of experience with vSphere, and you're willing to overcome that bar or that barrier to entry to take a VMware education class, then the VMware Certified Professional is the way to go. You don't have to, start off with the VCTA. A lot of questions come in about what courses are planned in the future, and I should note that these are not guaranteed. Future courses planned, specifically, I hope to be doing one here soon on the VMware Certified Technical Associate. And Pluralsight is also planning courses on the VMware Certified Professional, DCV, as well as all the other VCP certifications out there, including all the way up to the VCAP. We're super excited about the new certification lineup from VMware, and we have exciting plans to be creating training around those. I plan to update my VMware vSAN course with the release of vSAN 7, and then VMware NSXT, VMware Security, and updates for vRealize Operations to VROps 8, VMware Cloud on AWS. We've got that course out there that I created. I'd like to update that with the new changes to VMware Cloud, the new vSphere Kubernetes. I look forward to seeing some courses around that, and many more. VMware always continues to innovate, and so I look forward to always continuing to innovate training, on these topics. Do you have any words of wisdom? I get a lot of messages about that. I started off with live long and prosper, or go forth and multiply, but those didn't seem to be very applicable to this. What is applicable, though, is to always keep learning. And that's something I try to do myself. The founder of TrainSignal, Scott Skinger, had a motto that was CNEI, or continuous never-ending improvement. So we always continue, we never stop improving and learning our skills and our knowledge. And that's my words of wisdom for you today. So, but seriously, what should we do to get started with VMware? I encourage you, if you want to learn, whether it's the VCTA topics or the VMware Certified Professional topics, start off with my vSphere 7 introduction course and installing and configuring vCenter Server and ESXi. Those are the most popular courses in the lineup, and that's where most people get started learning about VMware technologies, and specifically what they need to know to pass the VMware Certified Technical Associate and the VMware Certified Professional. Before we go, I want to make sure that you are aware of my author page on Pluralsight. That's where all my new courses are published. Follow me on Twitter. I'm always talking about what's new related to VMware, vSphere, and certifications. Of course, LinkedIn as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone out there for joining the webinar. And now let's go ahead and do some questions from the audience. So I'll just leave that up and I'll bring up the questions wizard, and let's see what we've got here. So first question comes in, and they're asking, is the Pluralsight course in the library, the vSphere training we're talking about that I created, is it approved by VMware to be able to achieve your VMware Certified Professional data center virtualization? And the answer is that no. VMware requires you take a VMware education course. You can do that virtually from them, and that is the requirement that you have to meet in order to achieve your VCP, in addition, of course, to taking the official VCP exam. Now, that being said, I've talked to so many, Pluralsight viewers out there who watch my courses because one is they can learn what they need to know about vSphere before they go take that course, and they can take their time doing it. Or if they've taken the course and maybe it's been a while, they're preparing for the test, they can watch these Pluralsight courses, as long as they would want. They can listen to them on their iPad or their mobile device when they're traveling or on the train or the bus or whatever it is, and they can learn vSphere at their own pace. They're also great for anyone who is preparing for the VCTA, of course. So great answer. Thank you for that question. Next question. I work with VMware on a daily basis, and I am the VMware admin at my job. I have no formal VMware training. I learned everything on the job. Should I start with the VCP certification? If you're willing to, take the VCP education course, maybe hopefully your employer will help you to cover that, or it's something that you can just do out of your pocket, then yes, the VCP to me is far worth the time and investment that you'll spend on that. So yeah, if you have some basic vSphere administration knowledge, I would start with the VCP, but just make sure that you're ready to overcome that kind of bar or entry level challenge. And I know it's a pain, but on the other hand, that's what makes the VCP so valuable in the industry today. Steve is asking, does vMug Advantage include Workstation and Fusion as well? I'm not sure about that. However, if you go out to the vMug Advantage web page, I'm sure they will detail out exactly what it includes. Thankfully, VMware Workstation and Fusion are not that expensive last time I looked. So, and there's also free evaluations of them as far as I remember. Next question, when you get a chance, can you put up the free VMware Lab URL? Yes, I will type that in right here because it's simply HOL for handsonlabs.vmware.com. I'll send that out. Let's see, David says, I signed up for the VCP training through Tech Data. Is this course applicable to the certification? That looks like the correct course. VMware vSphere install, configure, and manage. It looks correct to me. I would double check with VMware Education though, just to double check. You don't want to spend your time on a course if it's not approved, but I'm pretty sure it is. I know they go through partners like that quite a bit to take courses or to sell courses. Let's see, Charles is asking, is there an option for Cisco certified professionals to take the VMware NV path without needing the training course? I do recall hearing something about that at some point, but it's been a year or two. So I'm sorry, I would recommend you check out VMware Education just to make sure about that. I've taken the VCP course in my past. Is that still current for the VCP test? And so how it works is VMware releases versions of their education courses on specific versions of vSphere. And for example, they would have a vSphere 6.5 education course that you take on install, configure, manage, and then a 6.7, and then a vSphere 7 course. And so those education courses typically match up with the VCP exam specifically. So you want to make sure that whatever course you have matches up with the exam that you're taking, or else if that exam is no longer available, then you might have to take the course, again. Luis is asking, is your Pluralsight building a VM lab good for vSphere 7? Yes. So in my 2 courses on building a virtual lab environment with Workstation and Fusion, I cover in there specifically how to create a vSphere lab environment inside of those. So I start off with like the networking and the Active Directory, and then I go into, installing ESXi and running a vSphere environment in Workstation and Fusion. That was really kind of the whole idea around those courses. So great question. Great question. Let's see. I know we're starting to run out of time. Daniel, are there any other questions that have come in?
No, I don't think so. That's kind of all I see on my end. I just went through social. So yeah, I think you've tackled them all. Thanks so much for doing that. We got a few questions. I just want to reiterate. So we are sending out a recording of this presentation, and you should receive that in your email inbox if you're joining us on Zoom. You should receive that today or Monday because it's Friday. So in the next couple of days, keep an eye out for that, and we'll also include a PDF of the slides so you can review those as well. So I think that covers the other questions that we were getting a lot of. Um, and yeah, I think we just had a couple more questions come in. David, do you want to just like look at those real quick and then we'll close it out?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I see a new one here that came in. They're asking, is Amazon the proper place to get books or literature in order to obtain these certifications? Recommended books for the DCV track. I mean, of course, Amazon has a lot of great books, but one of the books that I've seen, or I guess I'll mention two books. So one of them is Mastering vSphere by a lot of VMware V experts out there. Scott Lowe, Cody Bunch, a lot of, I'm going to miss all the names of the excellent authors. I apologize. But Mastering vSphere is a great book if you really want to read a book. And of course, when it comes to learning vSphere high availability and distributed resource scheduler, check out Frank Dinneman and Duncan Epping's book on vSphere clustering. It's like the go-to book for that topic. Personally, I have grown impatient with reading books, I hate to admit, and I watch videos, whether it's YouTube, Pluralsight, anywhere you can get your hands on video training, whether it's just listening or watching. To me, it's just a much more efficient way to learn. I even put them on 1.5 speed and listen to them as quickly as I can understand and just learn as much as possible. Do VMware certifications expire? Yes, periodically they do. In the past, I believe they may have changed their policy on that. So check out VMware Education's website officially to get the latest word on that. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again, David, for doing this today. It looks like you definitely provided a lot of answers to questions that people have, and I definitely want to wish good luck to everyone who's engaging in this endeavor. Definitely seems like it's worth it if you're willing to put in the work. I wanted to give you the opportunity before we jump off today to maybe leave like one final takeaway or one final word of wisdom with everyone here.
Yeah, Daniel, I think I'll just go back to my recommendation earlier, which is, the CNEI acronym, continuous never ending improvement. Always keep learning. Never sit still. In the world of technology, we can't just sit and rest on our laurels. You don't want to be the aging fax machine administrator or storage administrator. You got to stay current. You got to keep pushing yourself to always learn more. And so whether it's VMware certification that you pursue or any other, innovative technology, in the world today, I encourage you just to keep pushing yourself.
I love that. So applicable, like you said, no matter what you're focusing on. Well, thanks again, David. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.